Well, welcome, Kathleen. We're going to just jump right in. You and I met in our mastermind group. We'll share a little bit of that history moving forward, but right now I've got four quick, rapid fire questions for you. The first question being, share the best part of your entrepreneurial journey.
Well, it's a good thing there is a best part because it's been very hard in many ways. But I would say the best part of my entrepreneurial journey is being forced to get to know myself and to
Oh,
discover who that is that I am presenting to the world. Because I think I've spent most of my life not knowing who that person is. So that's been a real gift.
I love that answer. I don't think I've ever heard that type of answer before. That is amazing. And I think it's probably a lot to do with the growth opportunities that we go through as entrepreneurs, right? That's
Yeah.
great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I
And
love
for
it.
me, can I keep going about this?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I think for me, because I went through a period of my business kind of crashing and burning during COVID and me spending a lot of time with my family and helping with the care of my grandchildren, during that period, I kind of got old. I kind of crossed the threshold from that weird state between getting old and being old. And it was just been really painful to put myself out there on social media and be on camera as a much older person. And that has forced me to get real with myself and just accept parts of myself that actually I've never accepted ever. So that's,
Okay, we are digging deep into that one when in the podcast. So hold on to that thought because that is amazing. Um, the second question I've got for you is what advice, speaking of midlife, and what advice do you have for hesitant women in midlife considering entrepreneurship?
um, gosh, that's a tricky one. I would say keep it simple and don't try to do everything yourself and believe in yourself. Just really believe with your heart and soul that what you're doing is what you're supposed to be doing, and that urge to make a difference in the world will carry you through the hard times because it is an up and down road. There's no question about it. Maybe some people have just ridden through smoothly through it, but I've never met anybody who has.
Don't think I have either, to be honest. So, no, that's great. That's great advice. Third question, what inspired you to start your business later in life?
Well, I'd always been in business in one way or another. I was a yoga teacher. I had a couple of yoga studios. I had a bed and breakfast in Hawaii for a number of years. I, I just always wanted to kind of be my own boss, and I always had something I wanted to do that wasn't on the usual job descriptions that were of interest to me. Um, what caused me to become very, very determined to talk about natural skeletal alignment of all things
Mhm.
was being introduced to this information and having it transform my relationship with my body so dramatically that I just felt compelled. It was like a faucet had been turned on, and here I am 30 plus years later, and I still couldn't turn this faucet off even if I tried. So,
Okay, I love it. I love it. And then the last question is, how has entrepreneurship later in life impacted your overall well-being?
well, it's just opened so many doors. It's introduced me to so many amazing people. It's given me a chance to feel valuable and to have a real purpose in at this stage in my life when I know a lot of people are just struggling. They've retired and they wish they had a real interest and purpose to their lives. So I'm really grateful for all of that. And yeah, it's a journey, and I'm still on it.
Amazing, amazing. Well, thank you, Kathleen. All right, so Kathleen, first of all, welcome to This is 50, Freedom Through Passions. You and I met a couple of years ago now. We were talking in our pre-call. I had thought we only met a year ago. I cannot believe how fast time flies. You joined the Early Bird Mastermind group that I put together 3 years ago. I still
Mhm.
can't believe we meet. We meet quite religiously every Thursday. I mean, not all of us can make it at that same time, but we have set a Tuesday morning, early morning mastermind call that we go through all of our challenges and tribulations. We share ideas. We share all these great things that we're doing in our online businesses. And I think we can successfully say now that everybody has launched some type of program based on our working together. So it's been a real pleasure to get to know you, and you're like a fire in the group. And so I wanted to have you on the podcast to talk a little bit about your business. Two things. One is how you got into your business, and two, sort of the ups and downs as we go through launching a business. So give a little bit of a backstory on who Kathleen is, and then we'll get a little bit deeper into the nitty gritty details.
Yeah. Well, I started out just generally kind of lost in many ways in my life. I didn't really look, reflecting back from where I am now. And this is one of the things I left out in my little advice for aspiring entrepreneurs. I would say, really get your goals clear, get to know who you are and what you want in life, because I didn't know that. I just kind of charged out into life. I'm a bit of a period piece. I grew up in the 60s. I was graduated from high school in 1964. And while I was in college at the University of Maryland, everything was happening, the Vietnam War. When I was in high school, I had been very involved in the civil rights movement. And so I was just sort of politically active in that way. And then, of course, the hippie movement just drew me in, and I ended up moving to San Francisco in
Awesome.
1969, right in the middle of it all. And that's where I actually met my future husband. And we spent an entire summer traveling across the United States in a hippie van. It was a little handcrafted house that someone had built on top of a flatbed truck. And then we spent time in New York and Europe, and eventually ended up in Hawaii, which is where he grew up.
Mhm.
And we lived on Oahu, mostly in Honolulu, for 10 years. And our first child was born there, our daughter, our oldest daughter. And then we moved to the Big Island. And along the way, I had already developed an interest in yoga. Now, back then, yoga was not popular yet, and it was
Mhm.
considered kind of on the fringes, kind of weird. Um,
Okay.
and but some people who are old enough, will remember the PBS yoga program with Lilias Folan. She's the one who introduced me to yoga, and I used to religiously sit in front of a television set and do yoga with her. And and that interest never left, really. I mean, it came and went, but it was always, part of the fabric of my life. And it was an interesting time to be on the Big Island with an interest in yoga, because the Big Island was slowly becoming kind of a mecca for yoga retreats, yoga teachers, well known, especially I was really into Iyengar style yoga back then. And these well-known Iyengar yoga teachers would come and teach and do workshops. And so it was a great opportunity for me to really immerse myself. And eventually I got certified to teach through the Shivananda Vedanta organization, and began teaching. And I opened a yoga studio in downtown Hilo. I believe it was the first yoga studio in Hilo. There was one or two in Kona by that time. And I think somebody was teaching at the Y. But I had this funky little yoga studio, which I had for quite a few years in Hilo. And then life went on. I had two more children. and I was a busy mom, and I just did various jobs and community work on the side. And then I entered a period of, as my children were becoming teenagers and my oldest daughter was leaving home, I just moved into a period of sort of intense midlife upheaval. um, I also had forgotten to mention that I went to massage school and trained to be a massage therapist, which I also did um, in part with my yoga, but yoga really won out, and I, pretty much devoted my time to that. I had also gotten very involved in Vipassana, insight meditation, and so I had um, maintained a pretty regular practice and had joined a lot of retreats. But my marriage was definitely in trouble, and my husband and I were really struggling. And we eventually decided to part ways, but we didn't really part ways because we had moved. By this time, we'd been living. We started out in Hilo. My studio was in Hilo. My children went to school in Hilo, but we lived 26 miles up the hill on the slopes of, or at the summit of Kilauea volcano,
Okay. Wow.
in the town of Volcano Village, which is right at the entrance to Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. And just a wonderfully vibrant community of people, wonderful people. And we had a 6-acre parcel with our wonderful old home on it, and we subdivided it. And my husband built a little house on his end, and I had mine. And our driveways went out into different roads, so we didn't see each other's comings and goings, even though we pretty much saw each other every day. We had made the conscious decision that if we were not going to be a couple anymore, we were still going to be a family. And so we were able to really pretty much maintain that, and to maintain a really pleasant and cordial relationship all these years. So I'm really grateful to him. He's a wonderful man and a beautiful father, and I'll always be really grateful for having him in my life.
That's great.
And so then my daughter left for college, and I turned our home into a bed and breakfast. There were cottages already on the property close to the house. So this was not a situation where people were coming into our home. That would not have been a vacation for them at all. But there were these cottages, and then I turned the living room of the house was quite large. I turned it into my second yoga studio, and also a meditation hall for meditation classes that were sometimes held there. And then one of the bedrooms that was on a separate end of the house became a treatment room, and massage therapists and an acupuncturist would come and see clients there. So that was sort of a little functioning wellness center. And then my next door neighbor started clearing out the forest. So the community of Volcano is in a forest. It's just a spectacular upland Hawaiian rainforest, and deserves to really be treasured. And I lived right on the main road where there were a couple of stores and a couple of restaurants, gas station, and houses tucked away. And my neighbor put in an application for a lumber warehouse right next door. And I mean, really close to my little honeymoon cottage and my wellness center. And it really just added to all my own personal upheaval that I was going through, because I became kind of a figure in the community in terms of, it was almost like mini politics in America today. There were people who really wanted the lumber warehouse, and there were people who really opposed it. And the people who opposed it kind of lined up behind me. And I got caught in this weird thing of being the focal point because I had standing, supposedly, with the county planning commission that would make the decision. And anyway, it was a hard time. And I made the decision that if he were given his permit, that I would sell my place and move. And if he were not given the permit, I would stick it out. And he got his permit. And so it was just as our youngest child, our son, was leaving for college. And so I was off on a whole new adventure. I delivered my son to college and flew to New Zealand and met my oldest daughter, who was now, she had gotten a master's in education and was teaching, had gotten a job as a teacher in New Zealand. And when I got there, it was the beginning of summer vacation. So she and I spent 6 weeks driving around New Zealand together and staying in these backpackers is what they call the hostels. And it was just a glorious time for us. And then I headed off from there to Burma and went into a silent meditation retreat in a monastery for 2 months.
Okay,
And
so I'm going to stop you for a second because we're getting really deep into your story, and it's great. So basically, so let's just summarize where you're at. You spent most of your time in the on the islands of Hawaii. You have always been a yogi, so this is amazing. So you've just sort of taken your whole life and just evolved, really, is what how this story is going. So you become this yogi, you have this, this sort of event that happens where your husband and you have sort of decided to decouple as a relationship, but stayed a couple in terms of a family, and raising your kids properly. Your beautiful bed and breakfast retreat area gets disrupted by a lumber warehouse. I can only imagine that means chainsaws and lots of noise. So it's not going to work anymore. So you sell that. And now you're at a stage in your life. How old are you at this age where you are, really?
I yeah, how old am I? I am now in my um, 50s. I've moved into, well, yeah, there's a lot of overlap.
Yeah.
My husband and I separated when I was in about 46 years old.
Hmm.
And but then I headed off to Burma when I was in my mid 50s.
Okay. So now
Yeah.
you're in your mid 50s and you are currently working towards yet another reinvention. So it's been sort of
Yeah.
evolution, but now
Yeah.
this is feeling like a reinvention because you've lost your business that was in Hawaii, and now you're in your mid 50s. You really are free. Your kids are now left the nest. So now you're at a stage of reinvention. Okay, so now you go to the monastery, and what drew you to the monastery? Like, how did you know you needed to do that type of, I guess,
Well,
searching?
I already had a relationship with this form of meditation, this
Okay.
mindfulness insight meditation. And I thought that I was well prepared to handle a 2 month rigorous retreat. I had done 10-day retreats, but I had never experienced anything like this. And I, I can't say that I was rejoicing in the freedom that I had now that my children were grown. If anything, I resented the hell out of them for growing up and leaving me.
Aw.
And because now I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know how to be a woman alone in the world. And it terrified me. And especially because I was a woman who didn't really, I've always had an ability to kind of present myself with, people are always surprised to discover that I haven't always felt really confident
Hmm.
because I think I just put up a good front maybe. But I was just falling apart. And I think I was seeking refuge and some sort of clarity from going deep within. And looking back on it now, at the time I thought I was just kind of crazy, but looking back on it, I realized I was very brave and I was very smart to understand that it was time to kind of reinvent myself, but not just reinvent myself and come up with someone I wanted to be, but find out who I really am. And
Kathleen, I, I want to just stop you there for a second because so you're in your mid 50s now and you are looking at this reinvention. And I honestly believe that the fact, like you said, I had the courage to do something about it, and I think that so many women, you talked about being resentful that your kids have grown up. You no longer had your what was always your purpose, which was did your kids. You had your business, and that was your life. And now you have these things that are happening, and you've lost what you think
exactly,
is everything. And I
yeah,
think a lot of women in their 50s are feeling the same way. They feel like they've just lost everything. And how do you, at this stage in life, reinvent yourself? And that is the number one question that I'm going to tell you probably 99% of the women I know in their 50s go through. So you go
hmm
to the monastery, you're there for 2 months. What's happening?
Well, so what's happening is the beginning of it. I mean, it's like really boot camp. It is a Buddhist monastery. Everybody there is either a monk or a nun. There's some lay people like myself dressed in our little crisp white blouses and brown long skirts with a little sash across our chest. And basically, everybody is pretty much from that part of the world, Southeast Asia area, more or less. And there are a few Americans and a few Europeans. We never get to know each other at all or be able to speak because, we're there to meditate and we're not allowed to even look in each other's eyes. I was very aware of all of these rules because this is the way meditation retreats are. And I had done a number of them, but they were nothing like this. So Burmese was the language that was spoken, and there was an interpreter, and there was always help, and the people were so kind. They were so good. Um, but there was no connection. It was like being thrown into the deep end of a swimming pool and not knowing how to swim and having to figure it out. You weren't going to completely drown because you knew people would rescue you if it came to that. But except for that, that was the only safety net that you had. And so, yeah, I just, we got up at 4:30 and we had to be in the meditation hall by 4:30. There was a big wooden gong that would sound in the morning to wake us up, and we would go into the meditation hall and meditate and chant, and then we'd have breakfast at something like around 6 a.m., and then we'd have lunch at 11:30, and then that was it for food for the day. There was a little, very small glass of juice in the middle of the afternoon if you wanted it. And the rest of the time, it was just food before noon.
Hmm.
And at first, it was hard. I mean, I would just like stuff myself at lunch, just stuff myself. And then I just sit there with indigestion during the afternoon meditation. So I kind of got over that. And then I got used to it. And it wasn't hard to keep that food schedule at all anymore. But we would sit for an hour and walk for an hour, and sit for an hour and walk for an hour, and sit for an hour and walk for an hour. And then we do this until 9:30 at night. In the middle of the afternoon, there was a 1 hour lecture, um, and that was always very interesting. But of course, I had to listen to audio tapes of the translation during that period. And yeah, it was
So you
It
spent,
was really hard. It
yeah.
was really hard. And then that was the first month. And the second month was glorious.
Hmm.
I just had experiences that I don't even know how to find words to describe some of what I experienced, but I had these breakthroughs that were just awesome.
Right.
And the second month was just fabulous. And I really contemplated staying,
Mhm.
except that my middle daughter was graduating from college on the East Coast. And I had to be there.
Mhm.
And so I left. And
So, okay, so you're there for 2 months, you leave, you kind of, sort of integrate yourself back into the world. What
mhm,
lessons did you take, or what aha moments did you have? Because at the end of the day, you are now doing skeletal type work in your program now.
yes,
I want to
yeah,
get to that pretty
yeah.
quick here. So you you've taken your yoga background, you've taken your life events that have caused you to maybe have to do a bit of a reevaluation, a reinvention. You spend 2 months in the monastery. First month, a little bit tough to get through, but the second one was a bunch of aha moments for you and really powerful movements.
Mhm.
So you leave there, and then are you still sort of thinking like, I still don't know what I want out of my life, or was that sort of what you needed to start saying, okay, now I'm going to move into something different?
Yeah, so this is hard for me to understand. I think what happened to me was that I lost all ambition on some level. I still really wanted to share this information that I will be sharing with you shortly. Um, but I didn't have any motivation to sell or make money. Um, I just kind of was into full acceptance of being present in the moment.
Hmm.
That's kind of who I had become in that time. And I was kind of fearless for a while. I was pretty fearless. I took off traveling all around Southeast Asia. I actually um, continued to travel for a while. My daughter wasn't graduating
Hmm.
immediately. And so I worked my way around, and then I worked my way around into Europe. So I actually circumnavigated the globe, the earth, and spent some time in Portugal and did another meditation retreat there, a 10-day one. But yeah, I still, I can't say I found myself in Burma at
Hmm.
all. I
Hmm.
think in a sense, I lost my sense of identity, and it didn't really come in handy in the path that I was choosing to go on.
Hmm. Okay, so now where are you right now? Like, what are you doing today?
All right, so right now I'm preparing
Yep.
for my, this is such a juxtaposition because right now, today, I'm working on preparing for my annual Halloween sale of my online course on called Pain Free Living with Natural Posture.
Hmm.
And yeah, so
And so you started this pain-free living with natural posture because it was something that you were going through. Is that right? That's the story? Like,
so to go back to when I was living in Hawaii and I was running a yoga studio, teaching yoga classes, living a very busy life. I had started the part that I actually forgot to mention. It's sort of ironic, but I knew we'd be getting to it, I guess, is that I started struggling with physical pain. I started having a lot of pain in my right hip. It would keep me awake at night. Sometimes I'd be lying on the floor in the living room while my family slept, stretching
mhm,
um, in the middle of the night, trying to get relief so I could go back to sleep. I developed pain in my shoulder, upper back, and yeah, and it would come and go, but I just could never get rid of it. And I kept it. I was being quite hypocritical because I had people coming to me as a massage therapist and as a yoga teacher to help them resolve problems that I was currently going through.
wow.
And they were trusting me.
Hmm.
And I was embarrassed and ashamed. And I also had a livelihood that was wrapped up in that. So I hid my pain. I just forged through it, but it just kept getting worse. And so before I went to Burma, I had this opportunity. I read about this in a magazine, or in a yoga magazine, about the work of this woman in France by the name of Noelle Perez. And the article was written by two women who lived in California.
Mm-hmm.
One of them became my mentor, Jean Couch. And it just rang such a bell for me in terms of this natural, innate human alignment that we are all come into. I mean, if we're lucky enough to have been born healthy and all of that, that we come into the world with this opportunity to live lives that are comfortable, and that where our bodies move with ease, and just like all other species. And so I had already met Jean. I had studied with her. It had completely transformed my life and my relationship with my body. So I had this going for me when I went to Burma,
Mm-hmm.
because I was able to sit. Well, I wouldn't say I sat comfortably at first, but I was able to put to use what I knew. And that really propelled me, I think, in my meditation practice, and gave me really a lot of insight into studying my body as I sat. So much of meditation, so much of the way we um, address our lives on a daily basis has to do with the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about the body, and we separate the body. We exercise, we do yoga, we stretch, we strengthen muscles, we do all of these things, and then we put that away, and then we go back to being in our mind again and doing what we're doing. And what I had learned was a whole way of inhabiting the body all day long. I mean, as much as you can remember to,
Mm-hmm.
but all day long in everything that you do. So that here I was teaching yoga, and I had pain. And I can't blame yoga. Yoga was not the problem, but how my body was doing yoga was the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is the same thing with anything that we do. And today we have this emphasis, I think because of industrialization and technology. Modern humans have taken on unnatural postures and have really become consumed by slouching.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to combat this tendency towards slouching, people have discovered working out and strengthening your core and building muscles. And that's great. It's all wonderful to a point. But then, of course, being humans, we have also a tendency to sometimes take things too far. So now we have people who really don't like working out at all, but feel that they must. And they just, and there's just this proud buffness to people these days, where people just have these ripped muscles. And, the reality is that if your six-pack abs are strongly defined, you're actually advertising the fact that your real core strength is weak. Because the rectus abdominis muscles, the six-pack ab muscles, are the most superficial layer of the 4 layers of abdominal muscles in the body. And when you put all the strength in the most superficial muscles, i.e. the ones that show, you rob the deeper core of its strength.
Right.
And so, my mind was just being blown again and again as I was, sitting in Burma, having these revelations when I was supposed to be emptying my mind, but experiencing all kinds of things in my body. So yeah, I had kind of a different.
So, but I think
everybody has their own experience. It's all different.
And I think your time in Burma, like you said, you were supposed to be emptying your mind, but maybe that is why you were getting that clarity, because your mind was empty and you were more present in your body, and that's sort of that mind-body connection. So then so now you've healed yourself, and this is sort of a common theme that I hear from a lot of women entrepreneurs is that they are doing their passion projects now because, or their entrepreneurial businesses, same thing, because of a problem that they solve for themselves. So when was it that you said, okay, now I'm going to start this business? And I want you to talk a little bit about the journey of getting liftoff on your business.
Yeah, so for years I taught classes. It was just, I switched from teaching yoga classes to teaching classes in skeletal alignment. And along the way, I relocated from Hawaii to Portland, Oregon, and I continued to teach in-person classes. Meanwhile, and which I loved. I mean, I love being with real people
Yeah, in person. Yeah.
One-on-one or in a small, my classes were always small. I kept them small because you can only have so many people doing this together at one time, or so I thought. But along the way, I became, aware that I was getting older and that I really felt this commitment to being able to share this work and the way that I had created it. Because what I've done is I've really emphasized the skeleton, because we live in this muscle-centric society where we either, strengthen muscles that are too weak, or we stretch muscles that are too tight. And we don't realize that actually strength and flexibility are actually sort of two sides of the same coin. In a way, you kind of can't have one without the other. You have to be strong and you have to be flexible, and you don't have to work at it so hard. You just have to inhabit a natural body and not be sedentary. So you can walk and you can garden and you can enjoy those physical activities that you do enjoy, but you don't have to go to a gym to be strong and healthy. And actually, the body requires a balance between strength and flexibility, because strength and flexibility are all founded around the musculoskeletal system, which is a system of pulleys and levers. So your bones are your levers, and your muscles are the pulleys that move those bones. And that's their primary job. So making your muscles strong to hold you up straight robs the body of its flowing, easeful kind of movement that is also an integral part of being strong. So we just kind of need to have a whole mind shift around what strength is and what flexibility is. Look at it this way. If you build muscle and you stop working out, that strength is going to go away. Ditto, if you stretch every day and you're very flexible, you stop stretching, over time, you're going to lose some of that flexibility. If you never stretch, like a lot of the people I saw and photographed and met and talked to about all of this, about their own bodies, and if they felt pain after carrying heavy rocks on their heads all day, and they didn't have pain, and the next day they came back to move rocks on their heads again, still with a smile on their faces, that it's this easeful movement and the knowing how to align the skeleton that makes carrying heavy rocks on your head possible. It's not about biceps and triceps and pecs and six-pack abs and all of that kind of stuff. It's just who we are. And we're the only species that does this to ourselves, sculpts our body. It's kind of weird, actually.
So Kathleen, so then you are doing a lot of this work, this skeletal work. You're teaching, whether it was one-on-one or in the studio with smaller groups. I know because you're in my mastermind group that you have an online program. So what was it that got you to the
So I would get people asking me, do you ever come to Northern Michigan, or do you ever come to another country and I realized that there are other people who do exactly what I do, or their own version, but it's all based on the same source and the same outcome. Um, but I had really developed this concept that I was just explaining to you in a very visually graphic way that helps us understand that it's the skeleton that is that is ignored. And if we have our skeleton where it needs to be, that's what we need to know. And this is what should be taught to medical students, etc. So I decided, all right, I'm going to create an online course that puts it into video. My wonderful daughter, my oldest daughter, agreed to be my model for those segments. And then I created a lot of uh, illustrations and animations and things like that. And I put together this course, and that's where things got really tough, because I knew nothing about how to market. And I had basically kind of an aversion to, well, not kind of, very much an aversion to selling.
Right.
You know, it was different when people came to your yoga class. It was understood, you know, it wasn't a huge sum of money and they just gave you money. They bought a series of classes or whatever. It didn't feel like I was telling somebody you should buy this.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's been the hardest thing for me. And not only that, just understanding how that world works.
The
And
online
of
marketing
course,
world. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh, yeah. So that was hard, and I wasted a lot of time barking up many wrong
Like,
trees.
give me an example of the wrong trees.
Oh, I would I would believe that that some program or another was going to be the right answer for me. And then I would realize, once I spent a lot of money on it and I was trying to implement it, that really it wasn't that well suited for me. You know, it just didn't, it expected me to be somebody I really didn't want to be, or whatever,
Hmm.
you know, that kind of thing.
Like, so you're talking about like how you could take all of those, because by now you've got all of your recorded videos, you've structured your program in a way that
Mhm.
was sort of like an in-studio program, but now it's online and it's available sort of on demand. So you don't have to, wait for Kathleen to say, "Hey, listen, I'm opening up this online program," and wait for the Tuesday lesson and the Wednesday lesson. It's like it's all there. It's all ready to go. But then the challenge you had was, how do I get this out to the world? How do I inform
Yeah.
the
And
world that I have this
there
program?
are so many people out there who want this. I
Hmm.
mean, it's not like I do need to convince them, because they don't understand what it is. But when people start to find out what this is, and they really start to grasp the underlying rationale and all of that, it's people, and then people go through the course, they love it,
Hmm.
and they get so much out of it. I don't get people, asking for their money back. There's a trial period at the beginning. You can get your money back, no questions asked. It just doesn't happen. I mean, out of 360 some people who've gone through the course, maybe 6 people
Hmm.
have asked me for a refund within that trial period. And 2 of them have come back at another
Oh, that's
time.
so it could have been
So,
just the reason why sometimes, people ask for their money back is
yeah,
they hit the buy
yeah,
button. They knew that they just weren't going to have
right,
the time.
right.
And yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. So
Yeah.
you've got a very clever marketing campaign coming up, which is the skeleton for Halloween. Tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
what that program is and when it will be available.
Yeah, so it starts on Halloween,
Hmm.
October 31st, and every year it starts with me sending out the same very silly email message that is my skeleton buddy, Bone Ami, um, it, is writing the email, and it's full of, little jokes from him and or her. I think it's a him. He looks like he has a pretty narrow pelvis. And, yeah, so, and this subject can be so sort of heady sometimes that and I have a quirky sense of humor, and part of what is helping me is embracing that and just allowing that humor to kind of come through um, a bit more, so that it's not always just me blah 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 blah
Mm-hmm.
about these details. But I would say that one of my biggest challenges is shaping the message so that people understand. If somebody's buying a program in yoga or cooking or decluttering your house or whatever it is, they know what it is they want and they know what it is they're getting. Um, with what I'm sharing, it's something new. It's a whole new concept.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, move your body, but don't move it that way. Move it this way. It's yeah. There's a level of sharing information and informing people. I'm getting better at it. And that's a good thing.
So that's a challenge of an entrepreneur. One of the challenges for sure is the selling part. Because I think, at the end of the day, we as entrepreneurs understand our offer the best. And we are coming at it from a position of, well, we've already gone through it. We've solved our own problem. And now we've become very familiar with the lingo. We've become very familiar with everything. And so what we
Mm-hmm.
sometimes forget is that we have to explain it to that person that I was 5 years ago when I was doing this
Mm-hmm.
thing for myself. And so that's a
Yes.
really interesting challenge that you're faced with. But we all
Mm-hmm.
face it. We all face that as an entrepreneur. So this
Mm-hmm.
sale, so Kathleen, where can people find you to get a little bit more information about your program, and even catch this Halloween
Yeah.
feature?
So I have a website,
Mhm.
and it's very easy to remember. It is KathleenPorter.com.
Kathleen Porter. So
And
KATH.
yeah,
Okay.
KathleenPorter.com. And on the homepage, just scrolling down just a little bit, there's a way that anybody that you want to learn more about this can sign up for a free workshop.
Hmm.
The workshop really gives a lot of background information about this, and also walks you through how to sit on your pelvis so that you can sit upright comfortably and work at your computer for a fairly long amount of time. And Yeah, it's a worthwhile thing. It's a pre-recorded workshop, and there is a little sales pitch at the end.
Hmm.
Uh,
To
and
join your larger program.
It's
It's not like a hard sell and you can like it or not, but it's to, yeah,
no, it's not. It's never a hard
right.
sell, But even yeah, uh-huh.
Okay.
And so I'm just, but I would say this, and this is really an important piece because this is what I have come to understand more recently, which is that selling can be looked as a sacred act when you are absolutely confident and comfortable with the fact that what you are offering to people, it can be of great benefit to their lives.
Mhm.
And that's a really important,
I
thing
do love
to
that
remember.
because I mean, at the end of the day, I think we can get a little bit into this sort of imposter syndrome as entrepreneurs, and we're selling something and like, what makes me better than so and so and so and so? It's just really the way that you're presenting it from your point of view, from your passion. And when you're delivering that, as you say, it becomes where you believe it so much that, well, why
Mhm.
wouldn't somebody want to listen to that, Yeah, so that's good.
Yeah. And I get the feedback. I mean, there are some people who sign up for my course when it's on sale and then they never even start it.
Right.
I'd like to help them, get restarted. But a lot of people really get help from learning this. And I even now I'm noticing more doctors beginning to sign up for my course. And I think it's because they're so frustrated in not knowing how to help patients who have this. It's an unexplained kind of chronic pain. You don't really know for sure what's causing it, It's not something you can fix. It's something that only we ourselves can fix within ourselves by rearranging our
Yeah, like
bones
with
along in the way that they're meant to be aligned. And it's not hard to learn how to do this. It just takes commitment to put it into practice.
yeah, for sure. Kathleen, thank
Mm-hmm.
you so much for being on the podcast
Yeah.
today. You're a real pleasure. You're awesome in the group, in our mastermind group.
So are
Yeah,
you,
so
Lynette. You're just a real bright spot, I gotta
yeah,
say.
so we've
I mean, we all are in our own way.
we all contribute in our own ways, and yeah. So thank you for the time today. Everybody will know how to get a hold of you, KathleenPorter.com. And I'll make sure I put that link in the show notes. So thanks again, Kathleen. You've been a real pleasure. And I will see you, I guess, tomorrow at our early bird.
Yeah, thank you.